just meet you there, rather low or high.
Every week, the best in trance from the world's hottest producers and DJs, straight to your media player. This is a State of Trance podcast.
As premiered last week on the regular episode of A State of Trance and featured on my new mix compilation Universal Religion Chapter 6, my brand new tune with Anna Criado. It's called I'll Listen. Let me know what you think of it. Send me an email, armin@thestateoftrance.com, or tweet #ASOT. Talking about your emails, let's have a look what landed in my inbox this week. A good morning shout out to Walter Donkers from Den Bosch in the Netherlands. He writes that he listens to A State of Trance podcast every week before going to work while doing his daily jog session. He shouts out to Luke. Naeem Hairani from Nairobi sends a big shout out to his brother Alim in Kampala, Uganda. And thank you for your pictures. Susie Balain, she's on vacation in Puerto Rico right now. Tuned into the State of Trance podcast. Looking at that beach image you sent, I'm jealous of you, Susie. Keep those messages coming, armin@thestateoftrance.com. In a little bit, this week's State of Trance podcast classic, as requested by Niels from Belgium. But first, a man on fire. Andrew Rayel, Exponential.
is a State of Trance podcast.
You're listening to this week's State of Trance podcast. And this is what I call trance with a capital T. You just heard Jorn van Dijnhoven's remix of Full Tilt and Katrina Nordberg and Letting Go. Every week I dive into my mailbox and find the State of Trance podcast classic. You could request these. So if you have that special track, that track that makes your mind go boom, or a special moment in your life when you remember you were on a dance floor and you heard this track, tell me, Armin@thestateoftrance.com. This week's classic is requested by Niels Lauwers from Belgium, and he wrote, "This track has a very special meaning to me and my best friend Stephanie. Our love for trance music and this track really brought us together." So here it is for you, Niels and Stephanie, my own team up with Gabriel and Dresden. Here is Zocalo.
Going back inside with a classic. Only for the State of Trance podcast.
And that's it for this week. Be sure to check stateoftrance.com for more information about the final and last broadcast of the Invasion World Tour. See you next week for a new State of Trance podcast.
For more info and previous editions of the podcast, visit ArminRadio.com or YouTube.com/Armin van Buren. Until next time.
For more info, check www.armadamusic.com.